I think many of you in the room might know some of us. You might have heard of Capfinity. So I'm just going to give a very short intro. My name's Nikki Garchea, and I'm one of the co-founders of Capfinity. Set the business up 18 years ago, and I'm a chartered psychologist by background. I now specialise predominantly in the deployment of early career work within global clients, and really delighted to have some of those clients here today, some of which we've worked with for a few years. Poor old James has worked with me for my entire career. So he's the one to catch if you want all the secrets. We are really delighted to have this chance to share some knowledge. You'll hear very little from me, but I would really urge you to think about any questions you've got for the panellists as we go through, because despite the fire alarm, we are going to make sure that there's plenty of time to take those questions. So I've got a few already created, but we'll make sure that there's time for you to ask away as well. So without further ado, I'm going to click back, if I can, and just ask the panellists to share a little bit about their experience. And I won't go in photo order. I'll go with who sat next to me. Camilla.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Camilla McBride. I'm the head of early careers at Sky. I've been at Sky for 8 years this May, and actually all in the early careers team. So started in lots of delivery roles and have progressed to lead the team there.
Hey.
Hi everyone, my name's Hayley Bowd. I lead global early careers recruiting at Expedia Group. Been at Expedia for about 3.5 years, 2 years in the early careers team, but have worked in the early careers space for around 12 years total now. And I keep coming back to it, just keep coming back to the early careers work.
Hi everyone, I'm James Gordanifer. I'm Global Head of Talent Acquisition for Early Careers at WTW. Prior to that, I was with a law firm in early careers, and before that I was with EY in early careers as well. And my background prior to all of that was experience hire, so I've seen both sides of the coin.
Brilliant, thank you. So we're going to go into our first question, and James, this one is for you initially. Assessing and hiring for potential rather than past experience is probably being debated a lot at the moment globally. There's a decline in people's confidence in academics, but I know throughout your career you've been kind of following this path. Would you just give some comments on kind of potential versus academia and your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So I when I joined EY, I kind of walked into my first early careers role. We were working with Capfinity, and it was a strengths-based recruitment approach, and it was very much focused on potential. So it was kind of indoctrinated into me that was the way to recruit within early careers. And I think that I probably took that for granted, assuming that everybody did that. And I left EY about 2 or 3 years ago, and I joined a big law firm, and assumed that most people would follow that kind of similar suit in some form, and it really wasn't the case. And I was quite taken aback. And then as I kind of looked more broadly afield, realised how many employers were not assessing for potential. And given what we do, which is about spotting potential, growing people at the start of their careers to fulfil their potential, how you assess for that is critical to success. I think the other bit as well is, we're here to hire good people, quality people at the end of the day. And if you look at the science that sits behind it, the only way to do that is to hire through some form of assessment that is rooted in cognitive ability, coupled with some kind of structured interview or potentially an assessment as well. That's what predicts success. The lowest form of prediction is what school you went to, what university you went to, what grades you achieved. It's science. And I know you'll know this because of what you do. So there's a real practical side to it. And obviously there's the diversity and social mobility piece, which I'm sure we'll come on to.
Thanks, James. Camilla, from a tech perspective, any comments on hiring for potential versus experience?
Yeah, so I think that's been really important to us. So for us at Sky, we removed all entry-level requirements about 5 years ago. And what I mean by that is kind of grades or, having studied a particular course at university or whatever. So we use potential across the board. But I think that's been particularly important for our tech talent. You'll all know it's a hugely saturated market. We're all wanting more tech hires, but the numbers who are doing computer science courses, whatever, it's not growing with that. So I think for us, we realised that if we were going to really tap into tech talent, what we needed to look at is how do we assess for potential? How do we look at people who've got the potential to be able to code, etc.? And how do we train them once they join the organisation? So I think that's just been massively important for us and I mean, for many of us as we're trying to all get the same talent.
And can you just say anything about the kind of stakeholder buy-in? Any reactions to taking the approach? Any pushback?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we're very lucky, actually, in the sense that across tech, we've got a kind of a working group that have actually been very supportive of this approach. So I think what they have really thought about is how might we, ahead of people joining us, offer opportunities for people to upskill. So how are we supporting people as they're interested in Sky, but before they're applying, to be ready to apply? And then how do we make sure that the assessment looks at that potential rather than someone who's already got all the ability? So to be honest, we haven't had a huge challenge on that, but I know other organisations have. So I think it's just, if
you're naturally persuasive.
Yeah,
that's what I'm taking it.
I think if you look at the data, there's not enough tech talent out there. So you have to take a different approach. And there's probably different ways you could do that. But for us, that has worked really well. There's so many examples of people who studied history of art and are now our software developers or whatever. And I just think that is such an amazing case study for actually lots of people who've got the potential. They just haven't focused on that in their uni career.
Brilliant. I'm going to come back to your upskilling piece as well. I'm rattling through our questions because of time, so I'm going to come straight to you, Hayley, which I know is not in the order. So anything we pre-prepared is now out the window, which will make it more exciting and slightly more lively for everyone. We did a piece of research at Capfinity last year, and it was with the Wall Street Journal and YouGov. And one of the things that came through in a much stronger way than what we'd seen in previous years was that candidates wanted an insight to candidate culture. And over 80% of candidates said in a recruitment process, I want to understand the company culture as I go through my experience. And we have for many years kind of been weighing up. Do you go down complete off the shelf? Do you continue down this road of contextualizing recruitment processes? Hayley, we've worked with you on the global side of things, but would you just share kind of some of your experiences on company culture outside of assessment and maybe your EVP things as well?
Yeah, and I think for us, we hire at scale. So we'll have profiles we recruit for and the same profiles into our program in cities all around the world. So it's really important for us that firstly, there's consistency in how we hire. We're not necessarily taking a brief from a specific hiring manager. We're hiring a large pool of people into that role. But also from a candidate perspective, we want to make sure if you're hiring if you're coming in as a developer in London versus Seattle, you're having a similar experience. There's almost sharing what globally does our culture mean and what does that look like, but also what's information that's important for different groups of people. So we try to embed, and we sort of iterate every year. So we're just closing out hiring for 2023. We're going to start prepping for 2024. But it's almost embedding through the candidate journey elements of things that they would like to learn about us, especially having worked in remotely for the last couple of years. So, what we share on social media, for example, we have our immersive strengths-based assessment where we embed videos and real experiences from our graduates and interns when they're with us. Actually, since our offices have reopened, there's been a huge opportunity to get more content. Our intern and graduate populations are amazing with supporting us with that. We had some graduates in the office in London yesterday making a TikTok, and they're sort of running past our desk and putting something together. So they've been great in being advocates and knowing what content works. And then also, in the onboarding process and keep warm, it might be a virtual office tour. So they get to see the office that they're coming to. It might be coming into the office before they actually start. So it's almost embedding that through the journey so that they get that sense. And that could be the deal breaker, I guess, between them choosing us over a competitor.
Thanks, Hayley. Camilla, I know that you've done an awful lot in this space end to end. Would you share some of your experiences?
Yeah, so I'd echo a lot of what Hayley said, but I think for us, we always talk about this internally. There is something that happens when candidates walk through our doors. It's like, we call it the Sky magic. Don't know if everyone else would like that, but that's what we call it. There is something, what we hear from candidates is that when they walk through our doors and when they see what it's like to be at Sky, when they feel what it's like to be at Sky, there is this moment where the penny drops and they're like, actually, this is the place I want to be. So yes, I might have an offer that is more attractive in other ways somewhere else, but the way it feels to be here, this is where I want to be. And there was an amazing, actually this is off topic, but there was an amazing example the other day where I was in someone's induction and they said to me, 6 years ago when I was at school, I came to this building and I did an insight day. And I walked out and I said, this is where I want to work. And that person was on their first day on our tech grad program. Like that's it, right? That's what we're all here for. So I think that for us, we know how to do that in the traction stage. But I think what's been really important for us is how might we use that assessment to really immerse people in Sky? So how might we, through that assessment, give people this immersive experience of Sky where they can feel the culture, they can see it, they watch videos, of meetings, they see videos with our people, the photos are all actually based at Sky. We show off our cinema, we show off the amazing restaurants, the gyms, so that actually the assessment is truly two-way. It's as much about us assessing their fit to Sky, but it's also about the candidate truly opting into our culture, which will help in turn, hopefully, reduce reneges later on, etc. So I think that for us, embedding that within the assessment has been absolutely critical for that continuation of the journey and that feeling like it goes all the way through from the first moment they hear about us to, being on programme.
Thank you. James, I want to flip the technology question to you. You've obviously been in a few different businesses in the last 5 years. And I think during that time, we've obviously gone through a global pandemic. We've seen technology have a huge transformation on this industry. Any kind of reflections, what works, what doesn't, where you're at currently with your thoughts of tech and recruitment?
Yeah, I think it's really easy for us to come up here and talk about everything that goes well, in our roles and recruitment and kind of promote what we do. But I think it's also important for us to be honest and authentic about when things go wrong. And certainly I've been in a situation where we rolled out a whole new assessment process. We rolled out assessment events with over 100 people. A new ATS at the same time. We tried to do a team restructure and the whole thing crashed and burned. And I've seen the other side of it. And that's the piece I kind of want to pull out, is that there are so many bear traps where you can get this wrong. And so the level of rigor that you put in and the investment that you have on really clear objectives from the outset, a great relationship with a supplier and a partner, and transparency and trust to work between you. But when it comes to technology, the important, and assessment in particular, the importance of validation at the start of that to set the thresholds and the calibration of your process where it needs to be. If I think back to the situation I just described, we had a target of being 60% full against 2,000 roles by January of whenever this campaign was. We were at 40% full at that point. So we were 400 people off our target. And so we were in a really significant situation where it was unlikely we were going to be able to fulfill requirements. So we had to really rely on our technology in terms of the data, the richness of that data, to be able to be brave and make interventions halfway through a campaign. So I think the point is, it doesn't always go right. And the amount of investment that you put in at the start to really be clear on those objectives and like I say, have trust with your partnership is critical. The other piece I would say, actually, I know we're talking about tech, but one of the big learnings from that as well was our inability to influence stakeholders. We didn't have our stakeholders on side, and they had too much influence on how our process looked. And it was partly that which caused the car crash. And we had to rework the whole recruitment process because people who didn't understand early careers were making decisions about an early careers process. We should have been stronger. So I have to throw that one in there, even though it's not about tech.
No, but pretty critical, particularly for early careers. Hayley, I know you've been going through this experience at a global level. Would you just share some of your thoughts in terms of where tech's supporting you? And to James's point, maybe some comments on the challenges as well.
Yeah, and for us, one of the objectives with looking at bringing in tech was how can we, thinking about the role of our recruiters, how do we unlock where we can trust technology in place, and then our recruiters can really lean in more to some of the more value add tasks. So our recruiters are spending less time, hopefully, on the more transactional items. They're doing more value add. They can lean into candidate experience, actually enjoying their roles more, and it will have an impact on candidate experience as well. So us doing that analysis up front of what are the strengths and skills that work in our early careers population, and then being able to really objectively assess against that, it's actually transformed how we screen profiles and that top of funnel entire process. And it's still a work in progress. We only launched it for our last hiring season, so definitely going to iterate further and try to look at where we can do more. Definitely not perfect yet, but it really has transformed almost that, early part of the process, and meaning that we can rely on that technology in place.
Just logistically, working globally, how do you go about even implementing these things? Is there a group, a committee? Would you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so we do have many different stakeholders in different parts of the business that we work with. I think one of the things that's been great for us is we work as a true global early careers team. So we, about 2 years ago now, came together as a global function. So we've been able to then, as part of the talent acquisition organisation, look at some of the analysis of how are things working before, and where do we want to take them to. It's almost a from and to, and put that in front of many different stakeholders, get that buy-in in order. And it did take time. It took a lot of time to do that and a lot of time to implement, but also knowing that we almost plan over a year in advance for our hiring seasons, and we try and do that in a global way, knowing the markets work a little bit differently. But so we got it ready to go live for the first market, which is APAC, normally go live in July, August time, and then the others would follow. So we implemented in that way.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Start thinking about your questions. You've got about 4 minutes. When we're looking at kind of bringing in technology right now, and when we see the rise of artificial intelligence also available to candidates, and I think Google are launching their thing today, there is a quandary, I think, for recruiters at the moment around how much is going to be technology-led, and where, to your point, Hayley, where does the recruiter come back into the process? So I've had more recruiters in the last 2 weeks ask me about quite traditional interviewer skills training, because I think they want to go back and do some of that face-to-face. I'm interested from each of you, where do you think technology is going to kind of really play a role? Where has it played a role for you? And where are you seeing maybe the rise of the recruiter? I keep thinking recruiters going a little bit vintage at the moment. Some things are making a massive comeback, but it's that high tech, high touch, but particularly at these times. Anyone want to take that first of all?
No, I don't mind. I think you made a really interesting, in fact, both of you have made a really interesting point. There are things on the horizon, absolutely. I think we have a challenge coming in early careers, which is all about development and the lived experience. Some people call it different things: colleague experience, the employee experience, whatever it might be. And it's that aspirational nature of early careers and selling the dream of what that role's going to look like, when in reality they hit a business and that business does not have a clear identity anymore. They haven't figured out what hybrid looks like in practice. You've got managers who are middle-aged with kids who are quite happy to work from home. So why would they be in 3-4 days a week, creating a sense of cohort, creating a sense of social cohesion, which is all the things that we know that young talent want? And the other piece is obviously then you've got the impact of the pandemic on lost confidence, lost learning, and the need to be really robust and set up for that. So why do I say that? Because your point about technology giving insights into the lived experience has to be authentic and match what we're saying in recruitment. And so I think that's where people play a part in that, because technology can do that with bells and whistles and it can look fantastic, but actually it's those moments of truth and that human connection that I think will make the longer term impact. And we need people to be at the forefront of that. And the technology has to enable the recruiter to be able to do that really personalized approach, because that's another thing that Gen Z want is personalization.
I think that's massively impactful, because I think the thing is we all need the technology to enable us to run processes at scale and to run them fairly and to put the validation in and to run the adverse impact. All of that, the technology is enabling us to do that, to look at our thresholds, all of that work. But I think about the moments that really matter, and sometimes they're not the high-tech moments. So I really believe that the immersive, all of that stuff is impactful. But those moments that matter, I think at any stage, whether that's in attraction, whether that's during the recruitment phase or once people are in, I think about, I was sat at work the other day and I had one of my colleagues opposite me, and she was preparing a candidate ahead of an assessment centre. So for us, we run kind of webinars for everyone to attend, and sometimes we run one-on-one calls. And she happened to be talking to an apprentice, and I was mesmerised. Like, I couldn't do my work because I was mesmerised by this conversation, because it was like the best possible pep talk, coaching. She's not coaching trained, but coaching, motivational speech. And I left it thinking, my gosh, that apprentice going into that assessment could not be better prepared, but could not also be in a better mental space for thinking that they have got every chance of flourishing in this assessment centre. And for me, all the tech aside, you cannot lose those moments, because I wouldn't be surprised if that is why people are then going in with the confidence and the preparation to really excel. And I think those moments matter, and they're not replaceable.
No, I would agree. I think both of you have covered it really well. I think, we've seen a lot of research around how do you offer mentorship in the process? Like, students really want that. It might be the first time they're applying for a role. And I don't think we're there, like, being really honest, I don't think we're there yet, but we've been looking into how we offer that at scale. And I think that's where we're trying to get to. And we've just closed our hiring. We're now into that, prep planning for the 2024 season, which is really scary to say. But yeah, how far can technology take us, and then what will be the role that the recruiter plays? But I also think when those candidates join, there's a real opportunity to give them a really impactful experience through, an induction process as well.
Thank you. And I'm going to let us go out to questions now.